Well, hi there, everybody. It's me again, Pat Windrow, at the Cable Easel with part 2 of a study of Port Jefferson Harbor and a fishing boat. And we've gotten this far, as you can see, with lots of blue, some compositional information and some layout information, but now here comes what the writers would call the denouement, which is the beginning, the end of such a composition. It was done on a wonderfully clear day. This tape was made on one of these wonderful, crisp, clear days that happens when you get a break in the January weather, and it becomes a pleasure to be out there with the cool, sometimes cold breezes whipping away at you, but the clarity is the thing that is so wonderful. Now, working on this little side shack here, before I get to the point of the whole thing, is this boat. I'm just going to put this graying thing in here because I have the color left on my palette from another time, and so I'm using quick drying white, and so this, before it dries too much, I use it because after it's dry it is useless. So getting rid of the gray is merely a device of saving paint, which of course is a good thing to know about, because paint is expensive, and the economy with which you use the paint is the sign of somebody who is concerned with being able to do good quality work with good paint, but not to waste it. I find that there is not much being talked about wastefulness with painting things on some of the other shows, and I'm very concerned with it because a lot of people don't paint because they're afraid that it's going to cost too much. However, here I am. I'm using some quick drying white, as I said, and it's the kind of paint that is wonderful when you're working out of doors and you need to get something done in a hurry because the sun moves, has a tendency, thank goodness, to move. If it didn't, I think we'd be in serious trouble. And so you're working against time, and the speed with which you work has got a great deal to do with how fast the paint dries. So quick drying white, the Grumbacher people put it out. It's called Grumbacher, and it's for this palette knife technique, it's the one thing that I would recommend without any question. It is to be experimented with. You have to understand its property, and you have to understand how to apply it. Of course, I'm applying it here at an angle which I ordinarily wouldn't do, but I have to accommodate the television. And I'm going to also put the pilings in the water, and then we'll get to that wonderful boat. Here is the diagonal of the darkness of this fishing shed. I've got to hold this a little bit. The darkness of this of the lower part comes perfectly straight down, and then these pilings that play underneath here like wonderful verticals, which is what everybody wants, as well as diagonals. You want the verticals in the painting, but these verticals are also, according to the way I laid them out when I first started this, they are also in perspective, and they're coming toward you. Therefore, they have to follow a line of perspective, and if you don't do that, then it will be primitive looking, and there's nothing wrong with primitive painting, but if you attempt to be a realist, you want to make sure that the pilings that you're showing are going to be in perspective and therefore logical, holding up this little building. They are in the water, and as you can see, I'm going to put a gray one in the distance there because that seems to be further away, and it does not have as much color as the ones in the foreground that are in very deep shadow. And when you look at the anatomy of this kind of thing, it has to make sense. Otherwise, your viewer is not going to understand what you're talking about. There is a diagonal here underneath this. I'm not sure what it does. It could be a ladder, but it also could be just something supporting something else. And I think I'll continue it over to here because I think that it meets up with this piling. And this piling, of course, is nearer to you, therefore it's going to be longer. And it also, the nice thing about pilings in water is that you get to paint them twice because then they're reflected. And here's the way in which you would do that, and there's one way over here on the end closing up the painting, and that one is longer yet. The pilings, of course, have got to be vertically compatible to what they're reflecting, and that is done with what you would call reflection wiggles, and that can be applied over the surface of the water, which was done at another time. It was done in another show, and the paint has had a chance to dry somewhat, so when you're applying this paint or this color on top of it, it is not going to pick up the other paint, the drier paint. And that's why one of the reasons that I find that this palette knife technique is so interesting to work with, because there are so many different effects. You put a palette knife into the hands of 4 different people, you may get the same subject matter, but you will also get an entirely different and personal touch of what people do with this knife. So by all means, if you you do not have to learn how to do this, you have to experiment with it on your own. You do not have to go to a class. I doubt that there are many classes around that are going to offer the technique of painting with palette knife. It's possible, I may be misinformed, but I know that you won't find it on the television, or at least if you do, it's not my style. And so here we have the reflections of this little fishing cabin here at the end of Danford's dock in Port Jefferson, just directly next door to the ferry slip. And the ferry slip, and here's the very agitated surface of the water that is picking up the reflections of the shack above. In other words, a lot of darkness and activity is taking place down here in the foreground because the little shack up above is throwing its darkness on the surface of the water. So as you can see, when the water is agitated, all sorts of things happen with reflections, and you get wiggles and bumps and dots and so on. And if you can pull it off, then the desire to paint water scenes has been solved. Here is a general feeling. I'll step back in a minute and see whether or not this works, whether or not you can believe what I have just done, or whether it needs further explaining. It's like bad acting in a movie. If somebody is not sincere, you don't believe a word about the story because the acting is not accurate or sincere. And so if this does not work, then you have to go back and try to make it work better. This reflection stops somewhere around here on those distant pilings. But now we're going to get to the delicious part of the composition, namely the boat. The quick drying white is for the pale colors, and the darker colors require a gel which is called Zec, which is French for dry. And it is to be used with the darker colors, because the white, of course, if you use the quick drying white on black, you wouldn't get black, you would get gray. So the need to use the companion quick dryer is a product called Zec, Z-E-C. Sometimes it is not that easy to find. I find some of these art shops do not carry it as often as I would like them to. But anyway, here I am talking away and doing the blackness of this boat, which has been drawn ahead of time, somewhat drawn. But what we're trying to do here is to get an impression of this scene, and to remain as faithful as you can, but also to get the wonderful texture and the spontaneous improvisation of what you're seeing. That does not actually look like very much until I get the anchoring device, which is the reflection. Hanging out over the side of this boat is a tire, and that all that needs to do is to be shown as a silhouetted form. If I were painting it with a brush, I would make sure that I had some detail about that as being a tire. But what we're after now is the impression of it. And here is the reflection underneath this boat, leaving a slight water line that separates it from the water. I think that you can probably observe that from the monitor. And the form of the boat is not necessarily a mirror image. There is a lot going on with this reflection, and it is extremely dark right near the boat, and then it becomes progressively more separated as the water surface is agitated, until you are getting a little bit less darkness and a little bit less solid color. And these reflections begin to diminish in size until they eventually simply disappear into a sort of jumble of dots and so on, and sort of indistinguishable little patterns on the water. The need to anchor the boat right away is so that you can see very, very clearly and right away just exactly what's happening here. Now on this side, the water line does not show because it's in such intense shadow. I'm going to pick up some more black and some more of the Zec and mix it up, and I'm using it pure. That's one of the things about this palette knife technique is that you can use pure color, and it's all very exciting to be able to use pure color and right out of the tube. Some of it may tend to be overly dramatic, and some of it may compromise a little bit of the reality of the realism, but there's also an excitement and a drama to the use of pure color. You know, without all the great subtleties which you see in the classic rendering of a lot of paintings that you've seen in the past and even now. But I think that if you can take a sort of a brief break from the classic approach and just play with the experiment of this texture, you will find yourself very, very much intrigued with experimentation. Now I'm going to wipe this palette knife clean, and I'm going to apply absolutely pure white for that sunstruck side of the boat. Now it's the upper part of this boat, and as you can see, as soon as you put the pure white on, it becomes extremely brilliant, and it also has a nice solid feeling. So the brilliance of this, the boat is painted in two colors, and with any luck at all, this will look like the boat that's painted in two colors. The conning tower, or the superstructure, or whatever you call this area up here, is pure white also on the sunny side, and I'm applying that directly out of the tube. And quite thick, because that's the point of this kind of painting, to get this this texture. When I did this show the first time, I talked about an exhibit of paintings in the National Gallery of American Art, and how the Americans, who are always innovators in just about anything that they touch, they innovated the wonderful use of this very heavy impasto paint. You have to be willing to spend the paint. People who are on the idea that they're going to use very little paint because it's cheaper and they can afford it, they will not get this effect. One must use the proper amount of paint. Here is some more white on this building, and one swipe of the color is all I need to show that building. And another one up here to show this white building. I'll put the windows in later. I'm just going to put the white color on now because I want to get to the great radar tower on this boat. Oh, there's that close-up that I really need to have in my sights, because boats are complicated. If anybody out there has ever tried to paint a boat, they will know just how complex it is. Now the side of this, the sun side of this boat is a gray, but it's got a touch of ochre in it. So here, let me see if I can pull off the gray color. Yeah, it's really almost not there at all. The gray part of this boat is really quite dark, and it's got all kinds of things hanging over the edge of it. So the grayness is eaten up by some dark details later, but I'm going to put the background on first and see what those dark details are that are over there on that side. It's a little bit difficult to see, but you paint what you see, and that's the point. And I'm painting what I see from my monitor. It would be, if it were indistinct, it would also be indistinct right out there in the wild, as it were. And this was a wildly wonderful day. By that flag, you can see, as I think I pointed it out the last time that I worked on this study, as the flag is telling you that there is a northeast wind blowing, which is a telltale wind for coming weather. And the sky, albeit very clear and cloudless and beautiful and blue, there is something going on with the pattern of the wind. And that is bringing something from the northeast. And we all know that on Long Island, if something is coming from the northeast, you'd better bring in the laundry, as it were, or secure the windows, because things happen in the northeaster here on Long Island. We all know that, and that's why we live here, because it's very exciting. Here's the darkness of these windows in this boat. And I'm going to graduate pretty quickly, or I'm going to actually render that strange rope-like thing that is hanging over the edge of the boat. It's obviously a buffer, or a bumper, as you call, a marine bumper, made of tremendous amounts of fiber and so on to protect the boat from whacking into docks, which of course it apparently is prone to do at just about every occasion. And here is the let me see if I can get that sort of a ragged look about it, hanging over the edge of the boat with a lot of heavy paint. Let me get a little bit of that pale color, because it's catching the sun, and it's all very ragged, and it should be very thick And when you look back, and you'll see it, that the rope that is, well, some of it is hanging in the water, actually. There's some. And this is also reflected in the water below, which I'll do that a little bit later. But it's but I think that if you ever experiment with this, you will find a wonderful release and a great deal of freedom if you can, in fact, apply the paint with this amount of heavy color. It becomes more than just painting. It becomes an experiment and a learning process and a textural thing. Here and here, let me put those tires in before they're not going anywhere, obviously. This one is up on this part. There is one here, and it should try and tell you that it's a tire. And then there's another one up here. This boat is visible, anchored, moored at the dock at Danford's Inn in Port Jefferson Harbor. It was there on this particular day. Captain somebody or other owns this boat. I've forgotten the name. I should have tried to record that. If this were live, I suppose that he would call me immediately and tell me. But it's not live, and I'll find out, and maybe I'll tell you the next time I'm on what the name of the captain is and the name of the boat. I'm going to take a break for just a short minute and be right back, so don't go anywhere. Hang on. Once again, coming to the end of this part 2 of a study of a boat, which is, of course, perfectly normal right here on Long Island. We are a watery place here. We have water to the north and water to the south and to the east and to the west. So we are, in fact, exactly what it implies, an island, which means that there is the opportunity for wonderful water paintings. And I have now been intrigued with this water painting thing now for longer than most of my viewers have been alive. I guess I've been painting these little coves and these little spots on Long Island for longer than I'll admit to anybody, but who can ever get tired of this? The fascination is always there for me, and hopefully it's there for other people. I'm going to put this the distant conning tower in now of this wonderful old, not old, it's perfectly new and it's in excellent shape and it's beautifully maintained and it looks as safe as sitting on a park bench. And anybody who loves to go out and ride along the bounding main should plan to take one of these fishing trips on one of these beautifully maintained boats that are available to you right out there in Port Jefferson Harbor. I'm not sure that they were available today, but I think that the fact that it is moored there, that the possibility of going fishing is in the wintertime as well. There's doubtlessly a bunch of wonderful rules of how to fish in the wintertime. And there they are for you to take advantage of right here in your own backyard. Something that not everybody on this continent can say, because I have now moved to Virginia, and I can tell you when I come up here to do these programs, I'm once again, even though I think the mountains are a wonderful thing to see, and I love living among the mountains, there is nothing quite like the atmosphere of water. This is our planet. We live on a watery planet, and I am a frog. I love the water, and I love everything to do with it. So, and I love to paint it. And I'm hoping that these things that I do on this program can light up your lives of painting. I see there's a very dark area in this boat. It's a window of some sort. I'm not even going to question it. I'm going to put it on because time is running out. And back here there is a dark space, probably something to do with the general mechanism of the boat. I also see that in the front of this there is a very rusty looking place, which I have to pay attention to, because if there's rust on the end of the boat, then it's going to be even though it's an impressionistic thing, the rust is going to tell another story as well. So rust it is for the bow, or the prow rather, of this boat. There is a rusty, nice, sort of a wonderful sepia dark tone here in the front, a nice rich one. The white conning tower, I'm going to put the flag in first. The flag is going to be done in stages. I'm going to just do a very quick white background that is going to just be waiting to receive the stripes and the blue, but I have to get it in, and the wind is blowing it so that it isn't a rectangle at all times. And directly below it, which I think is very whimsical, is a skull and crossbones pirate flag. Directly below that flag, and I think that's terribly amusing, and I'd love to know what the story of that is, but there is the pirate skull and bones flag sailing off this perfectly legitimate and benign little fishing boat. But anyway, if you go down there, I think that you'll see it. The skull and crossbones will be, I'll just indicate it very, very slightly with a little sort of a touch so that you'll know that, that what I'm saying is sort of a, I don't think it's even, well, that sort of looked like it. Not really. Anyway, it's just a recording of something which I saw today. The red is going to be, I'm going to mix the red up of some alizarin crimson, and well, that's not a very good red. It's going to be good enough for now. The red, I'll show you that you just want to have a slight insinuation of what this is. There is no need to become totally detailed with this. We know that this is anything with red and white stripes and a blue field with something happening in it is a flag, our flag. And here this, I'll put a brilliant blue back there, and we can't mistake that. Just a little corner of it will tell you what we've got going here. Whoops. This is the Impressionism at its most interesting to me, whereby you can just make a very simple statement and then people know what you're saying. Well, maybe just a little bit more blue. I'm using phthalo blue as well as ultramarine because it is quite brilliant and it's quite vibrant. And so there you have, and you don't even have to worry about putting the stars in. Everybody knows that that is an American flag blowing in the northeast wind, foretelling some interesting weather, I think. Anyway, here I'm going to continue with the pure white right out of the tube for this structure up here, which is the radar structure, and I'm laying this on, as you can see, extremely thick. It is an impression of what it is. I am not telling you that I'm going to paint the bolts and the wires and all the things that come out of it. I'm just going to give you the impression, and hopefully this is the mystery of these paintings done in palette knife, that you know what this is, but there are no details, no genuine details. There's something happening up here, another white one here, and something up there, and then I believe there is another cross piece here coming over this across this way. Whoops. You have to sort of set the paint on the knife carefully so that it does a little bit what you want it to do. And then there is a vertical coming down dead center somewhere here. Now, as long as I've got white on here, I'm going to give you the anchoring rope of the boat to the dock. And it comes like so, a little bit, let me see, and not that thick, but it runs this way with a slight curve, and presumably that's enough to tell you that that is the anchoring rope. If it's a little too thick, just take some off. I'll just take a little bit off, just so that there is a certain amount of comprehension here of what I'm doing. There we are. Now, pull that one up. let us say for a moment that you understand that that is a boat. There are other things that can be added to it. I see that behind there is another tire. Behind the rope, there's a tire occupying a space back here. So that's one of the things that is hanging off the side of the boat that make it incomprehensible in detail, but nevertheless you know that something is happening. And then there's a little bit more of the of that rusty colored something which is making it quite dark back here because you're in the shadows, and as I say, the mystery of this is in the drama of what you can't see, what you really can't decipher. All right, we get to the gray part of this house up here. The time of day is being told by one gesture, and that is the shadow of this building, of the roof of this building. This will tell you what time of day it is. It is morning, because the sun, as we know, fortunately we know, rises in the east, and it has a little, it takes its trip, and at noon on a winter day it's at this angle. So not only are we trying to be as accurate with the objects, but I'm also trying to be as accurate with the time. And so, as I said to you before, painters are reporters. We kind of report events, and this event is that I am reporting on this particular day, the time of day. Underneath here, the porch is causing a good deal of it to be, the building, a good deal of it to be in shadow because of what the, because of the hour, and the fact that this shadow, and it should be accurate. If you can make that nice and sharp, that is the accurate shadow on that building. There are windows that go in it. Those are very dark. They just are indications of openings here. They don't have to be detailed. You just know that those dark rectangles, or what pass for rectangles, are in fact windows. And let's see whether or not the roof line should be designated, because there is darkness showing on the roof line. The time, of course, as usual, has run out much too quickly. There are not too many details to do anymore on this painting. I believe that the idea of having the nerve to do this kind of painting in front of everybody is to my well, it is certainly testimony to my courage of taking chances with doing this in front of everybody. Usually painters like to do this kind of experimentation in private and then show the finished product at their own leisure. This way I'm doing it, it's being live, and you take your lumps. Whatever goes right is fine. Whatever goes wrong, so be it. So with the understanding that you know that this is a demonstration, it is not intended to be considered what you might call a final and finished great work of art, but it certainly is what I would say an interesting and very textured piece. That tells you something about the atmosphere of the place and the time of day and where you are, somewhere in there. And I have enough color on my palette to give you a seagull that you know, they were all over the place that day, and this one happens to be in silhouette, and they are actually wonderful looking creatures. And there was a great cormorant out there today as well. So there is a bonus. Whenever you go out painting on your own, you will find tremendous surprises for you out there in the wild. Thank you for watching. This is the Cable Easel, me, Pat Windrow, sitting here jabbering away at you and hoping that you got something out of it. Don't forget to tune in whenever you can. Thanks for watching this time, and bye-bye.